Hello there. Welcome to Sanders Presents. I'm Greg, and if you're enjoying the content we're producing, please consider liking this video, subscribing, and making sure you have notifications turned on, and follow a link in the description below to become a member. This is a requested update video for the unlockable heroes that were data mined pretty much just a little over a year ago at this point on this very channel, cited across numerous sites including IGN, Bleeding Cool, Kotaku, US Gamer, Eurogamer. Some of you maybe even found this channel through those very links. So the question goes from our YouTube member, very much so, are any heroes missing? Have things changed? Has anything been added? So we're going to very quickly try to go through this. I have it up. I'm looking right at it as we're discussing. So this is a very much so an update only on the playable hero roster that is in the game. A question came, where do you find these? And this is a data mine, and by that I mean this is looking into the files of the game. In this particular case, it's Marvel's Avengers. In other videos, you see us cover Halo Infinite. We've done Pokemon Go in the past. We've done Sword and Shield in the past as well. But you basically dump the game's files in very basic layman's terms, and this is that. This is all literally from the game. This isn't leaked documents from, Crystal Dynamics, something external, something that ended up somewhere, so to speak. This is all in game. Now, that being said, I always like to remind everyone, a data mine is not exact. Just because anything is listed here, just because something is listed here, does not mean it will make it into the game. This could be characters that were tested and completely abandoned. This could be characters that were planned at one point but still abandoned or canceled for one reason or another. I have a little bit more to add, but I'll add that after we go through the list of these characters. Again, for the sake of argument, of course, we're not really talking about Spider-Man. He is exclusive to Sony anyway, so he doesn't really have an effect on the PC player base, and he doesn't really have an effect on the Xbox player base or Stadia or wherever else you might play it. So let's begin. Ant-Man 2, something interesting to always stay on top of. Ant-Man 2, you can read into this however you want to. I always try to keep my hopes up, especially if you've been following the channel. Black Panther, we already know about that one. We've done a deep dive on his data mine here. Captain Marvel, we did a deep dive on her data mine here as well. Captain America, that one's obvious. Doctor Strange, again, still looking into him. Not a whole lot of updates, have to be completely honest here. Falcon, same case, just not a lot worthy of discussion. Hawkeye, already got him. Hulk, got him. Iron Man got him. Kamala got her. Kate Bishop, she arrived as well. Marvel, we have a data mine on him. Again, though, not much movement since. Mockingbird, it is another similar case. There's not a whole lot of movement. Quake is another one. Just no movement. There is no significant update to offer for her. Scarlet Witch, another same case, unfortunately. Just nothing significant to offer there. She-Hulk, we're seeing a lot of movement with her. As I've speculated, I think she could very well be one of the next two heroes that will drop after Black Panther and ignoring Spider-Man, of course. Thor, he's already, again, we're playing as him. Vision, unfortunately, nothing really to offer. War Machine, I have an update on him. I do believe he is coming, that he is one of the next four, so to speak, and we have a video on that very topic. Wasp, unfortunately, just nothing to add. If you follow the channel, you know I'm a huge fan of Ant-Man and the Wasp. They were founding members of the Avengers before the MCU kicked in, and there's a lot of that brand synergy now. So Henry Pym and Janet Van Dyne have kind of been pushed to the side, unfortunately. Black Widow, already playable, and then Winter Soldier, a character that I do believe is right around the corner. And again, we have videos on that. In terms of trajectory in terms of like who could be right around the corner, I really think it's a race between Winter Soldier and She-Hulk. I really do think one of those two could be the very next hero. As I said, there's just not a lot of movement or update for some of these characters to really require their own video. Obviously, I always try to work within requests, and especially among YouTube members who request video topics. I always try to cover anything that is requested from them. But just in terms of raw information, most of them, there's not a lot of movement on. They're all still here. It's not like, again, you can still find all of them. It's not like they've been erased. It's not like they're missing. All of these still very easily pop up, but there's just no movement on most of them. Now, that could be a combination of reasons. It could, to be very frank, it could quite simply be they've been canceled. These characters have. Or certain characters could have been abandoned, been canceled, one reason, various reasons, what have you. That is very possible, and that's just something you have to expect. This isn't marketing. This isn't teases. This is data that isn't supposed to be made, widely available to the average consumer. And let's be honest, the average consumer isn't searching this up. The average consumer doesn't care. They'll either purchase the game based on what they know through advertisements, or they won't. Generally speaking, as it seems to be the case, they're really just not picking it up. And I don't think a data mine would change that one way or the other. Now, I do believe introducing Henry Pym, Ant-Man, and Janet Van Dyne the Wasp would push sales to astronomical numbers. Again, it's just a suggestion, to give him back his powers in some weird comic book way. But how many times have we seen comic books go and say, oh, you can't use your powers anymore, and then it just pulls back? It doesn't really matter. It's comic book science. It's comic book nonsense. You just have to go with the flow. Look at how many times Wolverine has lost his, adamantium skeleton. He lost his healing factor, and he's died multiple times. None of that has stopped him. So we kind of just got to hold off on, somebody can't use their powers anymore. It's comic book logic. It doesn't matter. You wave a wand, everything's fine. That's just another Thursday. Unfortunately, now this is the part that I wanted to get to, and this is just me. This is complete speculation, just looking at this list and looking at the MCU. In terms of marketing, there's a lot that can be said for brand synergy. We see it all the time, especially in Marvel. The MCU and Marvel Comics is very, very close now, to the point where, Marvel Comics used to be very distinct and stand on its own. It's now very similar to the MCU. They are moving closer and closer to matching that for the ultimate brand synergy. Now, we can argue whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, and to each their own. It's completely subjective. But we see a lot of that brand synergy even in this game. If you look at every character that was slated, or at least, we could say the major ones. Falcon and Winter Soldier, they had a show coming. The Hawkeye show, WandaVision, War Machine, She-Hulk. At the same time, I can play devil's advocate, and I can also say some of these characters are very clearly based off, or at least inspired by, previously existing characters. You have Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, very similar. When we get War Machine, it's going to be Iron Man and War Machine, She-Hulk and Hulk. Winter Soldier sounds, even some of the attacks and some of the things that come up for Winter Soldier sounds very similar to Black Widow. So there is a lot of echoes within that. There's some of these, there's a lot of echo. Now, they're not reskins, obviously, I'm not saying that, but there is an echo to them. There is an echo to some of these characters, yes, which might make it easier to develop. It might be able to fast track these more, but I don't believe in coincidences. I really don't. We're getting characters that are already very similar to characters we have at launch. I do think there's a connection there, and even within that, if you look at Kate Bishop to Hawkeye, a lot of similarities. Differences, yes, but still a lot of similarities, which might make some of this easier to fast track, which I'm fine with. Game design, that doesn't bother me. That's very logical, especially considering potential budget constraints, restrictions, things like that. That's fine. but I still feel like there's unique enough playability within them. There's just a little, tweaking enough to Kate Bishop to make her her own. She doesn't feel like a 100% Echo. But again, that's also entirely subjective. Just my opinion. I think there are certainly some characters here in the list who would have been amazing to have had sooner than later. And again, Black Panther being one of them. Having him sooner than later would have been amazing. Now we are getting the expansion, and, absolutely that's great. But I do think there's something to be said about how long the wait can be and the drought can be before you start to lose a player base, especially in terms of live service and one that's driven by a very core multiplayer component. Whether or not you agree with the multiplayer component, again, to each their own, but it's very obvious Avengers is, that's a core component to it. That's a core pillar, the multiplayer. So the multiplayer has to work. You have to have people there. Looking at this, looking at the brand synergy, they missed a lot of brand synergy. They really did. I mean, can you imagine having characters coming out with their shows, or at least relatively close to them? How they could have capitalized on that. It's such a shame that they weren't able to do that. And based on what I'm seeing here, unless something ends up changing, it's looking less and less likely we're going to get any kind of brand synergy with Multiverse of Madness. But again, that's not until March 2022. They could pull it out. They could surprise us, and we could get, Doctor Strange to launch and coincide. That'd be amazing. It's just looking less and less likely, and I think we need that kind of brand synergy in terms of trying to advertise this game to the average consumer, marketing it, getting that kind of word out. Because again, if you don't have the average consumer, you're not going to push the sales to astronomical numbers. You're just not. You have to have the average consumer. You have to have the people who are not on Reddit, who are not on YouTube, who are not on Twitter. You have to get them. And you have to find a way to do that. And that's where brand synergy advertising and marketing comes into play. And it just sucks that they've been missing it. It really does. Hopefully, they're, very much so, hopefully, and we'll see, because I don't think it's too soon to judge War for Wakanda. You know what I mean? I don't think we can reasonably talk about War for Wakanda until late September to October and just see the long-term effects, or try to get a month, 2 month out and see those effects, because that's what you have to pay attention to. You have to pay attention to the rolling numbers over time, and then it's just a question of, out of these characters, what ends up getting abandoned and what we do end up getting. And again, I have multiple videos that go into far more depth on some of these characters and the ones I think are coming soon, and how I interpret that information. So, in the comments below, let me know out of this list who you think would be one of the most exciting additions to join. What do you think speaks to the average consumer? Let's think about that. Let's actually look at it from that kind of marketing perspective, and looking at these characters. What of these characters would really push the average consumer that exists outside of a social media or this core internet bubble of the fans? You know what I mean? What pushes it? Think about that. What's your comments, and leave those below. To my YouTube members, thank you so much for your support and for making this content possible. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member, you can follow a link in the description below and support the channel for $2.99 a month. Thank you. To everyone, thank you for watching and being a part of the conversation. Please consider liking this video, using the force on that subscription button, and making sure to share this content with your friends across social media. It all helps immensely with YouTube's analytics and algorithms, and building and growing a better channel. So again, thank you. Above all else, and most importantly, stay safe, take care of others, and may the force be with you.